Hi there, I'm Mabel Chan, and this is One in a Billion, the last episode of our 10-part special series, True Colors. Since this summer, True Colors has been focused on the color of our character, not our skin, as we listen to writers, doctors, entrepreneurs, and civil rights leaders talk about their thoughts, choices, and actions in response to racial protests and a pandemic that have threatened our safety and our relationships with one another. Now, just 1 week before Thanksgiving, we want to look back on 2020 and ask ourselves, what are some of the ways that we feel better off than a year ago?
In some ways, I feel better off with myself even. My small New York City studio suddenly became my gym, my office, my bedroom, my art studio. And I recognize that I used to be afraid sometimes of coming home to an empty apartment, but I think that over the course of the last several months, I've been forced to really get acquainted with my own company and my relationship to spending time by myself.
That's Leah Ann Jarrett. You'll hear more from her and the rest of our team members and me at the end of this podcast. But first, I want to bring you Kira Oman's story.
I definitely felt like my career was derailed the second the pandemic struck.
That is Kira Oman, an actor, model, activist. I first interviewed Kira in 2017 when she talked about her past as an abandoned girl in China. Then an American couple from Virginia adopted her and gave her the kind of love and support she could only dream of. However, Kira continued to wrestle with self-doubt, caused mostly by school bullies. As Kira gained more confidence through her training to become a professional dancer, actor, model, she got noticed. Many opportunities soon opened up for her. In today's episode, Reflections of 2020, Kira shares moments in the past year that have shaken her and changed her for the better. Here's our conversation. Kira, I want to start the interview by asking you about your move to California from Virginia last year. When did you move and what prompted this cross-country move?
I moved late last June, so 2019, and I had been acting and modeling a lot in the DC area and a bit along the East Coast. And I just felt like it was the next step for my career and the best choice for me. A lot of my contacts moved out to LA, and a lot of my industry connections on the East Coast had connections with people in LA. So once I got out here, I was able to start working right away and get signed to an agency. And it was definitely just the right time and the right move for me. The people that I have met at networking events have actually moved from all over. Everyone is very multi-talented, which is very cool. People are very driven, but I don't feel the hecticness quite as much as I thought that I would. Like when you step out onto a street in New York, I just feel like you feel that energy and the busyness. And when you're in LA, maybe it's because of the weather.
So you moved to LA for your acting career primarily, and it's been over a year now. At what point during the pandemic did you feel that your acting career may be completely derailed?
Oh, almost immediately. As soon as they issued the stay-at-home order, and LA was one of the earlier cities to do a complete lockdown, as soon as that happened, I figured that things were going to be very, very different. Now, I'm very fortunate in that I have a lot of voice acting connections and I'm a full-time audiobook narrator, so my livelihood was not threatened nearly to the degree that a lot of my fellow artists were. So I was very, very fortunate in that regard. I did move out here for film, which was kind of disappointing that I wasn't going to get to work on anything for a while. There were still self-tapes closer to the end, and I know that now in the near future, television shows are going to pick up again. I've started getting some self-tapes again. But during the pandemic, and actually in the middle of the summer, I had no audiobooks and I was not getting any auditions, and I was concerned about what was going to happen. Luckily, fall is very much audiobook season, and I picked up, and now I'm booked through the rest of the year, which again, I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah, wow. But you're absolutely right about your positioning yourself as a voice actor as well.
Well, I have my own in-home studio set up with my own microphone and some I have moving blankets on my walls to muffle some of the echo in my apartment. So I'm able to just accept work and record from home and be full-time freelance and have a very flexible schedule. I just feel very grateful and very fortunate.
Now, I'm curious, voice acting, how big a piece of that of your portfolio did it play before the pandemic? And how quickly did you adapt to move that to more front and center?
I was doing about actually 1 to 2 books a month because I was able to supplement it with film shoots, whether it was independent films or something produced by a specific studio or modeling shoots. When the pandemic happened, I didn't have that extra source of income anymore. So now I've started doing 3 or 4 books a month. Right now, I just did 5 because one of them was a children's book. I definitely have shifted very much to really full-time audiobook narrating as opposed to freelance, half audiobooks, half film.
And you're enjoying it.
Yes, very much so.
Now, do you pretty much work with a manager to help you prioritize?
I do have a manager. My manager from the East Coast knew someone out here, and he helped me get signed to a really wonderful agent. I'm with Avalon Artists Group, and I just absolutely adore them. I think they send me the best auditions.
That's great. Well, I'm curious, what makes a role best fit for you?
Well, for me, I think that the best roles are ones that have depth to the character. Early in my career, before Crazy Rich Asians came out and before this whole diversity movement, I feel like really took hold in the entertainment industry, I was getting so many one-dimensional characters, like I was a nurse or a nail technician or a babysitter. And for my self-tape, I had to say 1 to 2 lines. And I think that the best roles are just characters that I can work with, characters that require a lot of depth of study and just someone who is just very interesting. And they don't have to be super complex, but just someone who has depth as a person. One thing that I would ask when I would go into interviews with agents was what kind of roles they would see me as and be putting me out for, because I'm Chinese and I am, yes, just very outwardly walk into a casting room. I'm Asian, and I didn't want an agent that was going to pigeonhole me or stereotype me or anything like that. My agent at Avalon is half Asian, so that's actually very nice. He very much understands what I'm looking for in my career and what roles I'm looking for.
Let's look at this past year. Were there any moments when you're dealing with uncertainty? What are some of the emergency response skills that you developed on the spot? For example, is there any new mantra, or new practice or philosophy that you've developed to help you center, stay calm, and carry on?
I think that this pandemic, if it has taught me anything, it's just that productivity does not equate to self-worth. I am very much a busybody workaholic. Like, I feel best when I'm accomplishing things. And I think that being forced to sit still for a minute has helped me see what's very important in my life. I have a wonderful family and friends and boyfriend, and I am just so very, very fortunate for that. And I think that it helped me recenter in that. Sometimes I just get very carried away with my job and I overwork myself and get very stressed and try to step back and enjoy the journey. With this pandemic, every time I get an audition now, I am just so grateful to be able to continue pursuing my dream, because that is in itself a privilege at this point in time. I know so many people who do not have that luxury and have lost people to COVID and lost their jobs and just had to move back home.
Right. Well, I was also thinking about for you, Kira, in what ways do you think that your training as an actor, and you're also a dancer, you're a karate, fighter. So you're very well trained with your body and of course your mind, right? Your mind and your body. So you play many different roles. You're tough, you're mean, you're sweet, you're sensitive. How is your acting training in general help you deal with fast changing situations?
Oh, I think one of the best skills you can have as an actor is to be adaptable, and you have to be, because on set something can change so quickly, especially when you're doing TV shows, like you're doing episodes out of order, and sometimes they shoot the scenes out of order. And so, like, that's just one of many examples why being good at improvising is a must-have skill for an actor. And there's a certain level of emotional stability that you have to have too, because you are just constantly submitting auditions, submitting applications. You have to submit applications to get an audition, and then an audition to get a callback, and then probably many callbacks to get a role. So it's definitely a process, and you have to develop a thicker skin to be able to deal with that. And I think that my martial arts training has helped me with that. I think my dance training has helped me with that. And like you said, staying connected to my body, like making sure that I'm taking care of myself mentally and physically, just to stay in the best state that I can so that I can be ready when those things happen again, but not being completely devastated and lost when they don't.
So I want to switch gear to talk a little bit about home and belonging. In what ways have your perceptions of belonging shifted throughout the course of this year in light of the pandemic? I mean, I know personally for me, I've been thinking a lot about Hong Kong, my hometown. All of my family except my husband lives there, and they're riding out the COVID storm in very different conditions under very different circumstances. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, my family is all on the East Coast in DC, and I haven't seen them. In January, it will have been a year. I haven't seen them since January, which is actually a very long time for me. I'm very, very close to my family and would go home as often as I can. Even when I moved to the West Coast, I want to say I went home like 3 or 4 times last year, just because I get homesick very easily. And so I think that just being here in Los Angeles, because I did have the option to go home, but I think that sticking it out here has really helped me feel like I belong in this city. I think that I felt that when I first moved here and I was booking, I was like, oh, okay, I can make it work here. But I think that sticking it out and living here has made this feel more like a home than it ever did before, because before it was very much like, I'm just moving here for my career. This is where I have to be. But now I'm here and just experiencing life here, experiencing a global pandemic here, and just connecting with my friends out here more, virtually, of course. But just like feeling that sense of camaraderie of like knowing when places are open and what we're allowed to do. So yeah, no, I think that that's definitely affected my sense of belonging in terms of where I feel like my home base is now.
So, what is it about LA, for example, that may make it easier for you to feel belong?
I really think that some of the best performers, artists in general, like comedians, singers, dancers, stuntmen and women, like everyone that I've met out here is so motivated to getting better. And I just feel like it is next level, the shoots that I'm on and watching these directors and everyone behind the camera work. I just feel like everything is so next level compared to what I was doing in a much smaller market in DC, which I love and will always be my true home. But I really love working with creative people out here in LA. I just feel like there is a higher standard and people hold themselves to it. And I think that that has encouraged me to work harder and get better at what I do. I really wanted to challenge myself. And I think that the people are out here and just the atmosphere of the work environment has really inspired me to do so.
Well, that leads me to the next question about hard choices you've had to make. You mentioned that it would have been possible and easy for you to stay at home, right, in Virginia, and you would still be able to act. But then you made a very difficult choice to leave your hometown, and then suddenly the pandemic broke just a couple of months after you moved. Did you
have any regrets? Did you feel as if there were any tensions you felt in terms of the hard choices you made to move to LA?
Definitely a lot of moments during the pandemic. And I think they will continue on for a while, just wondering if I made the right call by coming out here. When the pandemic was happening and I was not getting work or even getting auditions, and really no one at my level was. And so, but I was being really hard on myself because I used to pride myself in being very active all the time and working all the time. And I also joined the Screen Actors Guild. So I joined the union. So there was less audition opportunities for me anyway. But the ones that I got were very good, like paid well, really good roles, great working conditions. So that was just another aspect of, did I do everything too soon? Am I even ready for this? What am I doing out here? Why did I think that I could really break in over here? And so I think those doubts will always persist. Moving out here, I just didn't want to settle. I didn't want to wonder what would have happened if I moved out to LA. Could I have made it even farther? And I already feel like I have, so it already was not a waste.
Now, Kira, how are you thinking differently because of the pandemic about priorities in life?
I think that the pandemic has really forced me to look at other priorities in life in the first place, because my career is so important to me, and it still is. I'm still very ambitious. I don't believe I took the people in my life for granted, but now I definitely don't. My grandfather had COVID and has thankfully made a recovery, but that was very scary for a bit. And my parents are in the at-risk category, and they were still wanting my dad to go into work, and he would ride the metro into the city. And so that was really concerning to me. And my sister's at school in college, and my brother is going abroad all the time. And so I was really nervous about someone getting it. And just my family is my world, and I want everyone to be safe and to stay put and be healthy. I'm pretty decent at keeping in touch with my loved ones, but just being able to talk weekly with my best friend, and I schedule calls way more often than I used to. And I also have just really delved into my hobbies during the summertime when I didn't have as much work and I was looking for things and I was trying to find a release. And that's when I got back into writing and got a keyboard for my apartment. I've been playing piano since I was really little, like 4, but I've just never had a keyboard or anything in my place. I've only been able to play when I visit my parents. So it was actually something that I'd been wanting for a while. And I think this pandemic was really like, okay, just get it because you're going to use it a lot.
Looking back, what have you learned about yourself and your relationships that surprised you?
I think that I didn't realize how much I was really putting so much pressure on myself all the time. I'm constantly comparing myself to other people. I started to find my self-worth in, or lose my self-worth in that, like I wasn't measuring up. So I think that this time has allowed me to take a step back and just be like, just focus on you and your priorities and doing the best that you can, and try not to compare yourself as much.
I totally hear you. You know, for me, Kira, it has been challenging that stillness is becoming such a big part of my being now. I mean, I used to derive energies from running around, and I derive energy by generating energy. So now the inactivity itself is sapping energies from me. And I have to constantly think about, okay, do I now meditate or do yoga to do something different, as well as sit still and read in order to create some inner strength that way for me. How about for you?
Oh, I feel exactly the same. I think you're even more active than I am, just the way that you go out and you meet so many people and you connect so easily with people. And so I definitely agree with everything you said, because I was like, I have all this energy and I need an outlet for it. I need to start meditating. I think that would be good for me. I think that you have inspired me to start meditating.
Thank you so much, Kira. Now, as promised, I want to share some thoughts from our podcast team.
Hi everyone, I'm Leah. So much has happened over the course of the year that it can feel really hard to unpack what ways I feel better off or what ways I feel worse off. And in some ways, it's been easy to sort of fixate on the ways that 2020 has just completely overwhelmed me. But I do recognize there are a lot of moments that are unexpectedly beautiful or unexpectedly grounding that I hope I can carry forward as we look ahead to the new year. And when I think about my community, I feel like I belong among this group of friends that I know I've always had, but have really become family throughout the duration of this year. And I think that for the first time, in some ways, I feel like I've put down some roots, at least at my job, with my relationships, with my family. So in a lot of ways, I feel better off in the sense that I feel more committed to growing these relationships and getting to know myself better, despite all of the chaos and the pain that has been circling in the air over the last several months.
Hello everyone, I am Yvette. 2020 has been an eventful year. While I spent most of it in isolation, I find my lifestyle has shifted fundamentally. My diet has become largely plant-based, and I have been more aware of my carbon footprints and trying to figure out a more sustainable lifestyle as I spend most of my time at home. While parts of my life, like career development and traveling, are on hold, parts of it now comes with less distractions and more ease, like connecting with friends and family more often and committing to 7-hour sleeps, at least, daily. There's a saying that never let a crisis go to waste. I've definitely learned much during this year. Things around me have changed a lot, especially among my connections or friends. Some are engaged, some are married, some moved abroad, some quit their jobs, some bought a house. I realized that based on our decisions, we show our values. It's a family, career, wealth, a sense of community belonging, or realizing our true potential. That makes me reflect on my decisions. Is it out of fears? Is it in accordance with my values? Is it more opportunistic, or does it focus on long-term goals? I also re-examined my place in this world and my communities to figure out how to embed my values in everyday actions to create an impact that way. If anything, 2020 has helped me stand firmer with my values and passions. I now have a better sense of clarity on my goals and plans. When all the distractions are gone, what's essential appears. That's so very true. The uncertainty is not bothering me as much anymore because now I have a plan and I've been working towards it. So I'll also be ready to quote-unquote reopen with the world once this all passed. Looking ahead, I am very excited to carry on those positive changes that have occurred and to live in more harmony with my authentic self. I've never felt more grounded, and to me, that is belonging.
Hello everyone, this is Maggie. Needless to say, 2020 has been such a difficult year. We've had to cancel my father's flight from China to New York to unite with us, especially with his grandson, my newborn baby, at the end of January when China had the early outbreak of COVID-19. He had been looking forward to this trip for so long, and the disappointment was so profound. Then my mother's return flight has been canceled twice by the airline. We had to apply for the extension of her stay in the US for 6 more months. I've missed my cousin's wedding in Shanghai. They will miss my baby's first year birthday celebration. All of this saddened my heart. I've never imagined that returning home could be so hard. With the travel restrictions in effect and the deteriorated relations between China and the US, I've been constantly dealing with the anxiety of uncertainty. If there is a silver lining of the pandemic, it made me realize 2 things. Firstly, family comes first. I started to make more time to connect with my father and my relatives in China over video calls. My aunts, who used to be shy and reserved, started to express themselves more freely and told me how much they missed me, loved me, and my baby. I feel like we all learned to tell each other our feelings like there is no tomorrow. Secondly, how we show up in a pandemic is how we show up in life. I've decided not to be defined by the circumstance, even though I complain about it occasionally. I was active on social media, encouraging people to stay positive. I took online courses and designed a business English course to share my corporate experience. I savored every minute spent with my family. I told myself, I'm a mother now. I should be, and I will be, a pathfinder.
Thank you, Maggie, Yvette, Leah. Here are my closing thoughts about 2020. I'm sad about every life that's lost to the coronavirus. Worldwide, more than 1.1 million people died from COVID-19, and in America, more than 220,000. I'm also angry about the senseless killings of Black men and women due to police brutality and racial violence. Despite the public health crisis and racial tension that have wrecked our economy and battered our sense of security and well-being, I am immensely grateful to be able to fill this podcast this year with an amazing array of voices. Voices of African Americans and Asian Americans on the front line who were fighting against the pandemic and speaking out for racial justice. Their stories of heroism, sacrifice, poetic tribute, and calls for actions are truly inspiring. If you'd missed any of our episodes this season, please check them out on our website, oneinaBillionVoices.org, or Apple, iTunes, SoundCloud, PRX, or Radio Public. As we wrap up Season 5 today, we will distribute select episodes from the Rock the Boat podcast with Lucia Liu on our website next month, so be sure to check that out on our website at oneinaBillionVoices.org. We always welcome your feedback on any of our episodes. Just write to us at info@oneinaBillionVoices.org. Looking forward to 2021, I want to give back even more, but I can't do it alone. I need your help and your support. If you're interested in joining our podcast team as a volunteer, will you go to our website at oneinaBillionVoices.org and click join? If you like our podcast, our blogs, or our work with Asian documentary filmmakers, will you click donate on our website? One in a Billion Productions is a nonprofit public charity. Your donation is tax deductible. On behalf of our entire team at One in a Billion,
Brian Latwinowicz,
Yvette, you.
Maggie, she.
Leah Yen Jarrett.
we thank you for listening and for supporting our production and our community. Happy Thanksgiving. See you in 2021.